It's Mike Levin, Wednesday, August 17th at about 1:40 p.m. And I am going to try to do the Windows 10 anniversary update install so that I can get the Ubuntu bash script, which is supposed to be out now and released and available for anyone who does the process I'm about to show you. I'll attempt to do it in one take. I do already have the file sitting there, but for the sake of completeness, you just search on Windows 10 Update in probably pretty much any search engine, because the page it's going to lead you to is the Microsoft Windows 10 Update page. Let's see if it makes a liar out of me. Well, let's go to, that's pretty ironic, huh? Did this test from my machine, and let's go to Google first. Very interesting how Microsoft Edge browser does things. I'm not sure if I like it yet or not. Windows 10 Update. So there's basically a page on autocomplete. It's a page on the Microsoft site. There it is. I knew it was there because I was there before. Where it gives you this download link. Get the anniversary update now. You click on that, and what you get is this in your downloads directory. So that's what I'm clicking now. Like any install, it should challenge me. I give it administrative rights. And I'll probably do some pauses along the way here, because this is going to be one of those upgrade procedure things. An interesting note is, as you may know, I'm on my Mac here, and I had to up my memory to give a full 2 gigabytes to the Windows 10 virtual machine. And I don't think I got this far before. It checks out everything okay. Next. Okay, now it's downloading everything, because that first initial file download was teensy tiny small. You know, that's one of those EXEs, 5.5 megabytes for an EXE file. And so now it's going to download what I assume is a full copy of Windows off of the internet. Still at 0%. We can minimize this, but I will pause the video and come back. Guess I'll do that over here. Hello everybody, I'm back. It's the next day, and I had to let it run overnight, and this is what I was met with when I came in and looked at my PC this morning. So I flip over here. Oh, what do you know? It ran out of space during the install, but it only ran out of space from the VMware perspective, and I know I have 60 some gigs on the image that it can inflate to, but that's almost bigger than the internal drive in this thing. Yeah, this will be interesting. I'm going to have to clean up my machine a bit, and then I'm going to hit the continue and see if I can get it to continue. I will pause again. Okay, the unfortunate truth is that the quickest gain is to delete my Ubuntu, which is the other virtual machine under VMware on here. I can always put Ubuntu back, so I selected it here, and I am going to move to trash, and now empty trash can, and you can see by the size of this thing, let's see, I think it's the Windows image is at 16, close to 17 gigs, but the allowable size of the virtual machine is so much bigger than that. You can see it's completely filled up to what was available, but I gave it 8 more just now, so I should be able to empty trash, which I just did, and go over here and hit continue. I don't want details, or I don't want to install. There's a drop down here. Okay, try tonight. Remind me tomorrow. It's lovely how these installers, these automatic update installers work, giving you every choice but not doing the installation. Apple and Microsoft are both, I noticed, extremely assertively pushing everyone towards doing the big OS upgrades and the intermittent service packs, or what do they call them? Upgrades that come along. So this one is the Windows 10 Anniversary Edition upgrade, which I started downloading yesterday. I guess it had to download all this stuff. Windows installs do this whole ability to undo and to take back to your previous state if you don't like what happens. So there's a whole copy of your system sitting there that's really inflating the amount of space needed on the disk. And this really usually isn't an issue anymore, but I'm on a 2011 MacBook Air where it might even be an SSD drive in there, and that means it's smaller and that space is precious, so it is an issue here. So I'm going to pause again and come back when this gets up to the next step, and hopefully that 8 gigs that I freed up on the drive will be enough to get through this process. It just started what looked like a reboot here, and I started recording again. Let me make sure I am, just because it looked like it was only up to 12%. Yep, recording. So it got up to 23% on that blue screen of what looked like it was applying all the stuff it downloaded, and then it went to this when I looked up. I'm very curious about what this is. Is it a reboot after finishing 100% of the installs it was doing, or did it fail in the middle and this is like some VMware shutdown? Oh, the anticipation. Although it's not as quick as I thought it would be. So we'll pause again. The story continues. Nope, it just popped back to this, so I'm still waiting for, I guess, the updates to be applied. Okay, I should have come back when it was getting to like 95% or so, because the next time I sort of looked up, here we were. Let's make sure I am recording. I do believe I am. Yep, steady dot. All right, so welcome to Windows 10. This is what happens immediately following the Windows 10 Anniversary Edition install. Next. Okay, getting going fast. Use Express settings. No, I do not want to use Cortana. At least not on this particular virtual machine. I do need to use Cortana to stay up to date on what's happening in the breadth of my industry. The world doesn't begin and end at Google, and Bing was a good first act for Google, for Microsoft, and getting into Google space a little bit, but now it's all about these intelligent agents that are going to be growing and evolving into the next generation search engines with a voice API and a pretty good understanding of what you mean, and they're going to work more and more like the proverbial digital assistants that the US robotics palm sort of brought upon us. So I log in. Okay, this is all, by the way, in order to get to the bash shell, the Ubuntu bash Linux shell that's supposed to be built into this version of Windows. So it actually probably has been a few days since this anniversary, or even a week or so since this Anniversary Edition was updated. And one of my big claim to fames on the internet, at least with YouTube, is that I'm one of the first to do a full unboxing, complete and genuine unboxing of the Raspberry Pi when it came out back, and I guess it was 2012, was it 2013? Well, anyway, a few years ago. And I have a pretty keen nose for things that make a big difference when they arrive. And Jupyter Notebook, by the way, soon to be Jupyter Lab, is one of those things, running Python and what it means for various communities, from the scientists who are leading the way to the marketers like me using it in industry, to students using Python in school, just learning a new language for the first time. And I recognized the significance, for example, of a bash shell, a Linux bash shell, being built by default into Windows from now on, because that now removes Windows from being one of the last widely deployed incompatible products. The irony is that in the past, if you wanted to stay compatible, you went with PCs, you went with IBM compatibles. Well, now what is IBM in the picture? After so many iterations of Microsoft dominance, you're staying Microsoft compatible. And Microsoft is not an operating system based at its heart on the Unix model, the way Linux is and the way Mac OS X is. In both of them, when you open one of those type-in shell windows, you really get a standard conventional interface to the computer that Windows doesn't have until now. So, thanks for updating to the latest version. And I found this website over on the Mac. If it's still there, do I still have it? Where's my browser? Yep, okay. That tells us how to do this. So after it's installed, once you're sure you're using the correct version of Windows, open the Settings app, head to Update and Security. Okay. Settings. That was a Mac message. Update and security. Nope, that's not where I go. Oh, updates. Update and security for developers. So I can probably just notice it here, but I'll take a look at what it says. Darn pop-up ads. Developer mode in the lower right. Next, open Programs and click Turn Windows Feature On or Off. Okay, developer mode, and then open the control panel, click Programs. Where the heck is developer mode? For developers, I'm probably looking right at it. Use developer features. There it is. I was looking right at it. Turning on developer mode, including installing and running apps from outside the Windows Store could expose your device to harm. Yes, okay. It's a virtual machine after all. Searching for developer mode package. Interesting. Okay, so I guess one of the first messages here is that people who are looking to jump onto the Windows Bash, the Windows Ubuntu Bash shell bandwagon, it's not just installing Windows 10 Anniversary Edition, which in itself is a chore, and having it, you got to go through a few steps. So I just did that, and I'm not sure if it's going to require a restart. Okay. Control panel, programs, turn Windows feature on off. Control panel, which is apparently different from settings. Go ahead, Windows. I guess that's for compatibility's sake. Click turn Windows features on off. Programs, turn Windows features on off. Programs, turn Windows feature on or off. Okay, and then it's saying Windows subsystem for Linux in beta. You check it. Watch it be checked. Nope, it's not checked. Okay, this did in fact have to be done, and it is in fact in beta. I should have finished reading just in case there were other things they wanted us to do. Okay, it's going to tell us to restart now, Windows 7. Okay, no, that's the only thing. They did tell us to go ahead and click OK. It's going to require a restart, so we'll hit restart now. Okay. Let's see if it says anything else here, just to minimize our switching. After your computer restarts, click the start button or press the Windows key, type bash, and hit enter. Okay. The first time you run bash.exe, you will be prompted to accept the terms of service. The command will then download and bash on Ubuntu Windows, depending on your feelings. Application, I guess this will answer it. Now that this is the mainstream, now that Debian, Ubuntu derived from Debian, was chosen by both Windows and Google for Google Chrome OS. It's very interesting. The non-standard repo systems, they're wonderful repo systems, but Ubuntu and Debian both use the Debian package manager repository system, significantly different from the remote package manager, often known as Yum, from the Red Hat camp. So this is really Red Hat versus Debian, and Debian won. Okay, so we're gonna click the Windows, we're gonna type bash. It's gonna ask us to accept a license agreement. If you'd like to automate the installation of bash instead, you can automate the installation of bash. Oh, you'll be asked to create a user account and password for the bash environment. And if you'd like to automate that instead, you can run the following commands. This will automatically agree to all prompts and set the default user to root with no password. Of course, I am going to do that. I know it's bad practice and people will comment on the video, but bleh. Okay. And then I'm just going to do apt-get the apt-get stuff. I'm going to guess it from there because I've bored you enough. We have restarted. Different background, so again you can see the heavy overtones, I guess, the not so subtle, we're still copying Apple and OS X with this natural landscape. I mean, Apple doesn't have a lock on natural landscapes, but they are doing, all this Yosemite, national park imagery these days, up to El Capitan or whatever. And here we have a glacier. Oh, come on. Does it really take this long? Okay. The moment of truth. Ask me anything while I ask you bash. Hey, bash. Type yes to continue. Downloading from Windows Store. So what do you know? You actually needed to do the whole Windows 10 Anniversary Edition update so that you have a version of Windows that can fetch whatever it needs subsequently off of the Windows Store. I guess this makes sense because not everyone is going to need this stuff. It's an awful lot of overhead. It's almost like a parallel kernel on the machine. They say it's not a virtual machine, but there's still resource partitioning tricks going on. I'm sure they're using the technology that makes virtualization possible to manage and keep isolated and communicate between these two significantly different code execution environments. We know that because the very binaries that you run from this soon to be installed bash script are the very same binaries that an Ubuntu machine would run. They are the same ELF files. I'm sure we're going to be hitting a different repo than you do with Ubuntu or Debian. derivative, every major derivative that has its own issues also sets its own whole parallel repo up. This isn't done often because it takes so much resources, but Debian has their own and Ubuntu has their own, and this is why Ubuntu can, for example, have much greater driver support and hardware support than Debian, because they can put it in their own repos, and then there's experimental repos on top of that, so they can get really, really wacky. But it takes a lot of resources to have a repo like that, but I do suspect Microsoft is one of those organizations. So let's wait. Put everyone to sleep. But, truth in advertising, right? I went through a similar process trying to get Windows 10 on my Raspberry Pi back in the day. It's my biggest thumb down video I have, because I was waiting and I tried and they announced it and I couldn't find it, and I signed up and I was waiting for it and then I lost interest. So I never produced that video I intended to produce of Windows 10 on a Raspberry Pi, which would have been very different from what most people were expecting anyway, as it turns out to be an IoT, Internet of Things version of Windows 10. I don't think it even threw up a Windows graphical user interface. Well, maybe it did. I can't speak out of turn. I do have to try still the IoT version of Windows 10 on the Raspberry Pi. It's on my to-do list. But this is much more impactful on my day-to-day work, because if this turns out to be a viable bash script, if it ever gets installed, it's not locked up, is it? No. If this turns out to be a viable bash terminal shell, I said script, but a viable code execution environment, where I don't have to run things like a server, because I believe that's where its weakness is right now, but for just apt-get install, grabbing anything from a Debian-like repository and having it available for use on and use in, this shell that has access to the file system, the Windows file system, then it'll replace Cygwin. That's what I'm saying here. So when I type Vim, I will be typing Vim into a Microsoft Ubuntu bash shell instead of a Cygwin Minty shell. And the payoff should be a better repo system, software repository, and better dependency toolchain compiling, so that when you do an apt-get, well, that's part of a better repo system. I'll have the GCC toolchain for when you encounter those things that increasingly rarely, but still do involve triggering off the whole GCC toolchain just to do an install. The payoff will also be not having to use something like an FS table to map in every bit of the file system that I want accessible to the shell. This should use the same essential paths as a old-fashioned DOS command window would use. So tighter integration with the I guess parallel Windows system than Cygwin has. This will take a few minutes. I guess, shall I pause and miss this moment? I really want to capture it on the video, but honesty in installs. We pause. Okay, it probably really was quite instant, but I had it on, I think I had hit a space bar and I had to hit backspace and it came up with this. So let's see, username and password. I don't know. I wish I didn't have to choose one, but I'll choose my old standby. Okay, the environment will start momentarily. Documentation is available. And let's see. I am still recording. That's good. So the next step here, after you've triggered that off, automatically agree to all prompts. I don't know if that's necessary anymore. You'll now have a full command line bash shell based on Ubuntu. Okay? Well, it should be here, right? Hey, look at that. Let's give it a try. And let's see, apt get. Hey, it's there. Apt get update. Oh, sudo apt get update. Waiting to wait. Guess we can get rid of this one now. Unable to resolve something. Well, let's just try apt. Oh, my password. Hey, an apt get update. There we go. Amazing. I'll probably do an apt get upgrade as well. Oh yeah, of course, sudo. It should have my password stored as a token, so or at least authentication stored, so it doesn't challenge a second time after immediately having just given a password to apt-get. We answer yes. Okay. Looks like it's just about done. Now these updates can take a while. This is all fairly useful, interesting information, though I think I will pause anyway. Okay, that finished. Now for, in my mind, a really big test. Don't forget sudo apt-get install vimnox, my #1 thing to install after going through a process like this. Answers a bunch of questions. The fact that there's the no user interface version of Vim in the repository, what version you're going to get, a whole bunch of stuff. So this is essentially apt-get install Vim under Windows 10 Ubuntu bash shell. Okay, now I just should be able to type Vim. Hey, look at that. Let me quit and I'll do a Vim file name. I'm going to cd to home. See what home is. Okay, yeah, decent location. So it's the same as like using Cygwin. So I'll vim hello.py just to get some color coding. Yeah, there's color coding. Python? Do I have Python? Oh, look at that. Version 2.7.6, but nonetheless. So I can go Python hello. And there's hello world. All right. Python under the bash shell, under Windows 10, using Vim. I guess I'll do follow-up videos to, I guess, show the process of and document whether and how I replace Cygwin with this. My main machine every day here is a Windows 7 machine, so I might not get to this too quickly, but at least I've had the hands-on experience here, and it's a little bit less of a mystery, and I have a place to go now to do my experiments to see what this really means in a broader sense, because Windows is no longer an incompatible platform, no longer the last proprietary holdout of the mainstream platforms. Thanks for joining me. Hope to talk to you soon, and don't forget to subscribe.